This is American Hope Talk Radio with your host, W.L. Laney. His guests are real people who have overcome real obstacles and are willing to share their experiences with you, bringing hope for the challenges standing in the way of your greater success. Listen while we deal with life as it is today and reveal how hope for the future can bring you more success than you have ever imagined. Now let's get on with today's show.
Welcome to American Hope Talk Radio. I'm your host, W.L. Laney. My guest is George Hathaway, author of Leadership Secrets from the Executive Office. George has more than 40 years of experience as an educator, consultant, author, speaker, and executive of some of the most prestigious companies in the U.S. Hi, George, and welcome to the show.
Hi, W.L. How are you? Thank you for...
Well, I'm doing very well. I have a list of the typical questions that you are asked in the typical interview. If it's all right with you, let's make this interview different. Is that okay with you?
That's fine with me. Thank you. Yep.
All right. Unemployment is still way too high, especially if you're one of the people that are unemployed. Boomers are rushing toward a cashless retirement. I personally believe that business ownership is the answer to both of these pressing problems. Would you agree that leadership is the most important factor for the success of any startup business?
Of the many factors that could help with the situation, leadership is absolutely the number one, and I could spend a great deal of time talking about it. I'm talking about people leadership, and that is making sure that people that either work for you or are contractors, suppliers, certainly customers. All of those people need to feel respected. They need to be heard. They need to feel valued in order for a business to get the most out of those people.
Oh, okay, then let's talk about the 10 core competencies of what you call people leadership.
Sure. Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Right. Well, first of all is attitude. And I won't spend a lot of time talking about it. In other words, what is the frame of mind of a leader? And second is sensitivity. That is being aware of other people's attitudes and their feelings and how your behavior may affect them. Next is support. If you'd like me to continue through all 10 or...
Okay, no, what I'd like to do is I'd like for us to talk a little bit more about each one. So if we could go back and talk about the attitude. When you talk about attitude, attitude can be both positive and negative.
Absolutely.
So what are the characteristics then of the person that's going to have a people-driven attitude? What's going to be unique about that individual?
Well, first of all, anyone in a leadership position has got to maintain an even state of mind. Cannot be panicked, can't be concerned or worried about how business is going or how people are feeling. They need to have a constant positive attitude that their employees or people around them feel is a good leadership characteristic that they should adopt.
So you're talking about the leader providing a stability in the office.
Yes, certainly I've been in situations where my boss at one point or another may have gone into panic at the end of a quarter because we weren't making our numbers. That panic was felt throughout the organization, and everyone's productivity dropped because of it.
Okay. All right. And then the next one that you mentioned is sensitivity.
Right.
Sensitive to what exactly do you mean? I don't want to be a weepy person.
Sure. Well, here's the point. People have feelings. They are proud of who they are. They want to feel good. They want to feel happy. They want to feel valued. So their leader needs to be sensitive to that and needs to always find ways of reinforcing their goodness, their contribution to the work being done. And there are even simple hand gestures that a leader might use that could disrupt a person's work habits. I'll give you an example, and this is the one that actually caused me to write my book. One day, my boss and I were talking, and the phone rang. And I stopped mid-sentence and said, "Don't you want to get that?" And he said, "Well, the odds that the person on the phone is more important than you are 50-50. I'm betting on you." That's sensitivity.
Okay. And then you talk about style. What do you
Yes.
mean? What do you mean about style?
Well, style is how you present yourself. Are you well-groomed? Are you dressing for the occasion? Are you well-dressed? Not necessarily tuxedos, but if you are in a business setting and it's a very formal business setting, are you wearing a suit and tie? Are your shoes shined? Are you behaving in a way that other people will feel good about you as their leader? Remember, people follow the leader. So whatever the leader's style is, people will adopt it. And if you want people, for example, to show up on time to a meeting, then stylistically, you better show up on time to every meeting.
Okay, now what about the geography? You live in Connecticut, I live in Colorado. A business dress here is going to be significantly different than it is in Connecticut.
True. However, when I worked for IBM many years ago, the dress code was not black suits and white shirts. The dress code was actually wear whatever your customer expects you to wear.
How important is salesmanship when you talk about people-driven?
Yes. One of the important things of a leader, one of the important tasks of a leader is to convince other people that certain ideas, decisions, or actions are important. And people may not believe it right out of the chute. They have to understand more about why something is good. So that means that a good leader has to turn on his salesman hat, put it on, and go through some very important sales techniques to get other people to adopt their ideas.
Okay, now when you talk about salesmanship, George, are you talking about a used car, high pressure selling, or are you talking about a professor's educational presentation to show the advantages of whatever it is you're trying to sell?
Sure. Actually, I'm talking about somewhere in between. First of all, it's not used car salesmanship style, which often is considered to be a problem. No, I'm talking about very intelligent, thought-provoking ideas and reasons why a particular decision has to be made or an action has to be taken, and engaging the employee, customer, supplier, or contractor in questions that they might have, and answering those questions in a way that convinces people that they are on the right track.
You're listening to American Hope Talk Radio. I'm your host, W.L. Laney. My guest today is George Hathaway, and we're talking about the core competencies for people-driven leadership in the 21st century. George has graciously offered to give away one of his books, so you can call us here at our office, 855-WL Laney. That's 855-955-2639. Okay, George, you talk about motivation. How motivating should a good leader be?
That should be one of the very highest priority tasks of a good leader. And that is, it's getting other people to actually do something that they might not want to do, right?
Okay, do you do that with the carrot or the stick?
Oh no, never with the stick. That's an an oriented style which is not people-oriented at all. Never should anyone threaten or even impose a problem on someone if they aren't motivated to do their job.
Well, George, I agree with you. Would you also agree that the carrot is the wrong kind of motivation as well?
Well, it can be a motivator, certainly. One of the things we know from Hertzberg out at Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, that money is not a motivator, it's a satisfier. What motivates people is actually value. How valued does someone feel they are to an organization and to their job? And if they feel more valued about what they're doing, they can be motivated to improve on that value, to gain even further value for the organization.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, one of the first things you want to do is respect people. You want to trust in them, and you want to be sure you clearly state for them what it is that has to be done and the reasons why it's important that it be done. A little bit of salesmanship there. Then you have to trust in that person because you hired them because of their good job, their good talent, to go ahead and do the job that they were hired to do. Then the very important thing to do at that point is get out of the way. Let people do the job.
Okay. All right, and then that brings up the next point, which is communication, right. Communicating your ideas.
Yes, and this is a very difficult particular function of a leader. Not everyone is a great communicator, such as people we know in politics, for example. One of the things that a leader needs to be sure they do is clarity. They need to be clear, they need to be concise, they need to ask for understanding so that when they say something to a group or to an individual in their team, they want to say, this is what we need to get done. This is what the conclusion should look like. Here are the consequences of not getting it done. Do you understand the points I'm making? And are there any questions? Is there something you don't understand? And as you follow along, follow the individual to see that they in fact are doing the job they were asked to do. And if they're not, then sit them back down again and have another discussion. Communications back and forth, that is not only speaking to the individual, but listening to the individual, are critical.
Okay, how important is support?
Well, this too is very important, and that is that when a team or an individual does their job, they need to know that their leader is ready to supply whatever resources are necessary to help them to be successful. These could be resources such as an additional member to the team, that may be funding or tools to help them do their job. It's all about being successful in the work that they do. Therefore, the leader has to be ready to support them by providing every resource they need without question, and also to back them up if something goes wrong. To be able to say to other people in the organization, they're doing a great job, we can fix whatever problem they may create.
You're listening to American Hope Talk Radio. I'm your host, W.L. Laney. My guest, George Hathaway. His website is www.leadership21.biz. You can reach him by phone at 860-550-0632. We're not going to have time to go through all the rest of the core competencies like drive and integrity and responsibility, and these are very important. I wish we had time to talk about them, but I wanted to ask George, how important are these people-driven leadership competencies to the individual that's going to start his own small business? He's not a corporate executive. He doesn't have a staff of 300 people. He's got himself.
Right. However, he's not alone. He does have suppliers, maybe contractors, and certainly customers to interact with. So all of these leadership behaviors apply to those other individuals as well, even though the person may be just an entrepreneur operating on his own or her own.
Okay. Now, George, you say that people are the key to business success in the 21st century. What do you mean by that?
Well, in these times where the economy is slow, maybe recovering, it's very difficult to achieve the business results you hope to achieve because of this slow economy. But it's not a time to put pressure on people, because they're not the cause of the problems that you're experiencing. What you want to do is turn to your people, ask them for ideas, advice, suggestions, recommendations. What can you do together as a team to address the downturn and maybe come up with new ideas, open up new markets, maybe new products, whatever it might be, to return to a culture that in fact is refreshing and energizing.
Okay. Now, George, you've said that women statistically prove to be better leaders than men. Is that really true?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
In fact, there's an article that was published by Harvard Business Review last March of 2012, by Zenger and Folkman, that says that of the 16 characteristics that they assessed across 7,200 people in business over the last 3 years, women outscored men in 15 of the 16 parameters.
Okay, so should I fire all the guys that I have working with me, hire women?
Well, you should do that. Let me tongue in cheek, obviously, but fire those men who don't want to listen to it. There are many men who are just, they just have it in their mind that women are not just as good as they are. And those people need to be sold to, they need to be motivated, et cetera, et cetera.
This is American Hope Talk Radio. You're listening to George Hathaway. George, tell us again, how can we reach you?
Sure. Well, first of all, my website's www.leadership21, that's the digits 21, .biz, B-I-Z, and my phone number is 860-550-0632.
George, thank you very much for being on the program with us today. And if you need additional information, you can call our office toll-free 855-WL-Laney. That's 855-955-2639. 855-955-2639. Don't forget to call, and the first person who calls will get the copy of George's book, Leadership Secrets from the Executive Suite. The Executive Office. Thank you, George, for being with us.
Well, thank you, WL. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for having me.
You have been listening to American Hope Talk Radio with W.L. Laney. Questions and comments can be emailed to wl@wllaney.com. Go to www.wllaney.com for more programs like the one you heard today.